So, a very good afternoon. This is the second episode in our TNA Talks, and I'd like to welcome the TNA founder, Jeanette Carlsson. Today, Jeanette's going to talk to us about the market in Denmark at the moment and focus on the priority after a recent survey that her and the team carried out, where they discovered some interesting things about the current tech and startup scene in Denmark. So, welcome, Jeanette.
Thank you, and hello everyone. Hope everybody is good still out there, despite the increasing COVID problems. So yes, as Barry said, we just went out last week to do a survey, ask all of you, so 100 of you actually, how COVID is impacting you and your startup business right now at this particular point in the Corona crisis. And we do that for several reasons. So one, as most of you know, we run the Startup Ecosystem COVID-19 resource hub to help Danish startups, scale-ups and the ecosystem in the digital tech space through the COVID crisis. So it's really important for us to understand exactly how COVID is affecting all of you right now. What specific problems are you running into at this specific stage of the COVID crisis? We really need to know that so that we can offer the right kind of help. And when you approach us, we have the right kind of people ready to support you, whether you need access to capital or mentoring or technical help or just general strategic and business advice. So as Barry said, we've been running a survey with 100 startups, which we analysed, concluded on last week, and there are some real staggering, eye-opening, I think, findings coming out of that.
Excellent. So what kind of companies, you said startups, was it kind of sector specific or was it very broad?
Yeah, so we focused on not sector specific, but obviously within our own space, within the digital and technology sector. So it can be any fintech, health tech, creative tech, gaming companies, IoTs, AIs, blockchain companies. We had a broad
full spectrum
of startups responding to the survey, so about 100 in total, so across digital and tech, but not sector specific.
Okay, super. So let's crack on with the details then. So give us the gist. What did you discover?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think there's some harrowing findings actually, Barry. And I think, you know, at the top level, we heard that 54% of startups will consider themselves in crisis survival mode over the next 6 months. So that's really quite scary. So the specific question was, you know, over the next 3 to 6 months, but a staggering 54% of startups came back and said they consider themselves in survival mode, which is a really scary high number.
So do we interpret that to mean that they're going to be laying people off, do you think, in order to sort of save funds just to kind of survive? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Definitely, we're hearing a lot about that in you know, outside of the survey as well, in terms of access to resources and so on. And so everybody's kind of scratching around trying to get their work done, you know, at the lowest possible cost. So. So I think that's one of those, you know, to be decided. But to really hear that 54% of startups consider themselves in survival mode, that is telling us quite a lot, and the whole impact on not only the individual startup, which is bad enough if it goes belly up, but also of course the potential implications for laying off of staff in those startups, but also much more widely what's going to happen to the innovation funnel. You know, in Denmark, our future
for years ahead,
growth and our ability to compete internationally, if all this source of innovation, this you know, continuous funnel of innovation that the startups, you know, provide, if that goes down, it's just horrifying to think what the medium and longer term implications of that would be, in addition to the terrible impact for the individual startup and their team themselves.
Okay, and what else? What other things jumped out to you from the survey?
Yeah, and so again in the same thread, 47% of the startups feared that COVID is threatening their viability, either drastically so or to a moderate extent. So it's along the same kind of path as them finding themselves in survival mode. But threatening viability really is telling us that depending on which way this COVID thing pangs out and how long it goes on for, we are really not sure that we can exist in the long term. So that might be slightly different from, are we in survival mode right now? But is really telling us that unless things change, then we could really go down.
Yeah.
And that's scary. So the same medium, longer term implications, obviously, in terms of innovation and economic growth and jobs and ability to compete internationally and so on. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Any other
Yeah,
big, anything positive come out of it?
Well, I think what is obviously really positive is this spirit, and I'll talk in a second about the specific challenges that were highlighted. That's really important to understand. But I think what we're really seeing here is this fighting spirit of trying to plow through this crisis and not giving up but are trying to think creatively of new ways of doing things. And so we speak to so many startups through the Startup Ecosystem Resource Hub, obviously, and the way in which they are trying so hard to think differently. So how do we navigate this particular problem? Is there another way of doing this? And, we had a session, quite recently with a startup that said to us, really, we consider ourselves of being in a digital transformation phase right now, where, think again, what are we doing? How are we doing things? And so COVID is really forcing everyone to think differently about exactly what are you doing, what is your core business, what should you be focusing on Monday morning, how are you doing things, how can you access resources and customers and funding and so on, which probably takes us neatly to, we should probably talk a little bit about these specific challenges that are
yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
I was going to say, was there anything sort of a trend in the challenges that they're facing? I mean, is it, we've all sort of heard, there's a big reduction in funding. What did you find?
Yeah, and so as I said at the beginning, one of the reasons we went out and did this survey is to make sure that we absolutely understand what the specific challenges are that the startups are facing at this point of the COVID crisis, not just as a result of COVID, because we're now at a different stage than where we were in March when we locked down. Things are evolving. We are in phase 2 and so on. So we needed to understand exactly what are the challenges, and are we in TNA focused on the right kind of initiatives to match those challenges, to ensure that we are totally relevant and offering the right kind of help all the time. And so what this survey has confirmed to us is we absolutely are, in that we heard that 29% of the startups in the survey consider access to capital their absolute top priority.
Okay.
And so that's the highest number, and that is at par with another 29% that consider what to focus on, what to prioritize their biggest challenge. And those two things are absolutely aligned with what we hear from the startups and what we spend the majority of our time on. And that is startups coming to us saying, we've lost access to capital. We have had investors delaying their investment because our business plan isn't really delivering. Investors, want to take their time before they put more money in. So run rate is affected, cash flow, that whole domino effect. So access to capital is the top priority, along with what to focus on. And I think I said that in a Danish press article earlier this week as well, that what we're really seeing and hearing is, predominantly, young people who have identified a challenge, developed a really cool solution to something, trying to build a business and grow a business, but often young people that haven't had many years of running a business behind them. So when things are going well, it's good, but when things are going, are tough the way they are right now,
you don't have the experience to call on.
Experience to really say, right, how do I navigate this crisis? What did I do last time? What worked? Who can I call upon? Let's think creatively about this. And that's a hard thing. And so therefore, as I said, another 29% have come back and said, actually really thinking, what do we do on Monday morning is a hard thing. And that's why they come to us and say, look, can I actually speak to a mentor? I need to speak to a grown-up who have been through crisis with a business, who can say, look, if you were in my shoes right now, what would you do?
Yeah.
That's really important. And so those are the two top categories: access to capital, what to go to. And then the third one, I think, is really
I was going to say, interesting. What other ones were there?
Yeah, exactly. So the third one, nearly as high, 26%, have said access to international markets. And as the world has gone belly up. We are seeing Europe closing down now again. Germany and France, Belgium is in a bad state, the UK is in a bad state, and US, Canada is pretty much shut down in terms of access. So it was really hard, and because Denmark is such an export-focused country and fairly small, we really rely on access to international markets and that export. And we have so many startups with export-focused strategies. So that is it's to have that shut down is really very, very scary for us. And so obviously for us, one of the things, and I think people know that by now, that we have our global tech advocates network that we deploy so much, but both in terms of access to mentors internationally and to investors and everybody else. We have the ability to reach out when startups come to us and say, help me, I'm trying to do something in Germany or the Netherlands or Canada, or can you connect me? And so that is also tallies with the third big chunk of time that we spend there. So it's really sad that the startups are facing these problems. Obviously, it's potentially detrimental to them. But what is at least good for us to see is that the areas that we spend the most time on are indeed those three areas that come out as the biggest challenges for startups.
Yeah, really interesting. And going forward, I mean, how can you be supported more in 2021, for instance? Like, what do you think? Was there anything out of the survey that sort of is still missing from the ecosystem there in Denmark?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we try to do every single day, actually, as well, is kind of, I tend to use this famous phrase of joining the dots, and I think we reach out daily. We're in contact with all the startup communities, all the time, in our internal channels, our external channels, individual startups. But I think at a time like this, more so than any other time, working together is so important. So we try also to work closely with the other startup ecosystems in the country, whatever vertical, whether it's fisheries, maritime, gaming, fintech, health tech, whatever it might be. We are in constant communication with the universities, with the startup hubs, with all the different communities in our space to try and really bring everybody together and make sure that everybody understands there's help out there. And to everyone who's listening to this, obviously, we help directly, but you have also got access to our hub, Startup Ecosystem COVID-19 Resource Hub, which you can go on yourself and find access to resources, funding sources, and mentors and events and talks and everybody that you can reach out to and you can access yourself. So, and if you have a question, obviously, please get in touch so we can help. So I think that's really important, how we can all work together at this time across the ecosystem is is something that is an obvious role for us to play, because we have this kind of.
And just just to highlight, all the links will be available in underneath this video, so people can click and see some of the data from the survey. They can click through to the hub to get all of their questions answered and access all the expertise that that you've been talking about, Jeanette. It's really interesting, and thanks ever so much for your time. I think that's a really good overview. The survey is pretty in depth, isn't it? So I think there's a lot, a lot more data in there that can be explored and discussed. But I think that's a good, a good overview of what you've discovered. And I would imagine similar findings, are happening across the startup scenes, all around Europe and the world, I'd imagine. So, that's,
and we have obviously extracted, the Danish data from the survey because of the Startup Ecosystem COVID-19 Resource Hub, being focused on the Danish market. So we'll come back on those as well. And as you just said, you click on the link below, you can see the data and the charts. And if you want to use those, that's absolutely fine. And don't forget, www.technordicadvocates.org is the website. You can go into that and you can click on Take Me to the Hub, and you can see all the resources available. The hub is being updated every Monday to ensure that we have all the resources from all our partners and the Danish public sector, and anywhere there's access to funding and help, we put that on the hub. To make sure that you have everything in one place that you need, so you don't have to spend valuable time zapping around on the internet. You can come to our hub and you can trust that whatever help is available in Denmark and relevant internationally through our global net is all sitting on the hub, and that's updated weekly. So please make use of that for sure.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you ever so much for your time and for giving us all some information, and appreciate it. We'll catch up with you soon. Cheers. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.